Every 25 years, millions of Catholics participate in the opening of what are called holy doors, sacred portals that symbolize entry into divine grace. But what if these doors, deeply rooted in ancient traditions, raise more questions than they answer? Today we'll examine their history, their symbolism, and whether these rituals align with the word of Yah, or something far darker. Stay with us as we journey through the spiritual, historical, and esoteric layers of the Catholic Church's Jubilee ceremonies. The year was 1300 when Pope Boniface VIII declared the First Holy Year, or Jubilee. He invited pilgrims to come to Rome, offering them plenary indulgences, which is full remission of temporal punishment for sins. Central to this Jubilee was the symbolic act of walking through the Holy Door, representing the transition from sin into grace. The Catholic Church claims that the Holy Door represents Christ as the gateway to salvation, echoing his words in John 10:9, which states, "I am the gate, whoever enters through me will be saved." However, this practice raises significant questions. Are there any biblical basis for such a ritual? The Jubilee, inspired by the Old Testament traditions, originally focused on land rest, debt forgiveness, and freedom for slaves, not indulgences, pilgrimage, or ceremonial doorways. So why then does this modern interpretation include these elements? Now, what gives the church the right to give the temporal remission of sins, so that a man will not have to be punished for his sin? Well, the church claims spiritual authority to intercede on behalf of the earth using its treasury of merit, which is a storehouse of spiritual merits accumulated by Christ and his saints to offset the temporal punishment. This has to be the most Roman, Greek, or American mindset ever. We own the most, so we are in control. Now, mind you, not one thing in their coffers actually belongs to them. They pillaged it from the Judeans when they ransacked the temple in 70 AD, and then kicked all of them out or killed them. You really cannot make this stuff up. The concept of crossing a threshold to achieve spiritual renewal is not unique to Catholicism. In ancient Greece, doorways were sacred to Hecate, the goddess of magic and crossroads. Pagans, witches, and even druids often viewed thresholds, whether stone circles, archways, or solstice markers, as points of transformation. At Stonehenge, winter solstice ceremonies mark the sun's rebirth, symbolizing a new spiritual beginning. In Wiccan Yule rituals, participants light candles and walk through symbolic portals to release negative energy and embrace spiritual renewal. Even in ancient Rome, the Saturnalia festival involved purification rituals and celebrations that symbolize the return of light after the solstice, a theme echoed in Catholic jubilees which often coincide with the Christmas season. During the Jubilee Year, Catholics undertake pilgrimage to designated churches to pass through these holy doors, symbolizing a journey towards spiritual renewal and divine grace. While pagans didn't use the term pilgrimage, certain pagan traditions involved journeys to sacred sites during the winter solstice. For instance, modern druids and pagans gather at ancient sites like Stonehenge to celebrate the solstice. They view this journey as a spiritual quest to connect with ancestral energies and the natural cycles, to seek a new spiritual beginning or release negative energy and receive renewed energy. In Catholicism, the Holy Door represents entry into divine grace, while pagan rituals, the solstice marks a transition from darkness to light, symbolizing renewal and the opening of new spiritual pathways. The Holy Door ceremony requires specific acts: a pilgrimage, penance, confession, and a prayer for the Pope's intentions and success. But here's where things become intriguing. Catholics are instructed to pray for the Pope's success, but success in what exactly? This ambiguous phrasing leaves room for interpretation. Now, critics have argued it prioritizes institutional goals over the personal spiritual growth, subtly aligning billions of participants with the Church's broader agenda. However, esoteric traditions emphasize the power of portals and rituals. Crossing a sacred threshold is said to channel energy, amplify their spiritual focus, or connect to other realms. Is it possible that this Holy Door ceremony serves a similar function? Catholic rituals often blur the line between worship and tradition, raising concerns about whether these ceremonies are purposely or unwittingly aligning with ancient practices that once used to honor false gods. Our God, Yah speaks explicitly against adopting such practices. Deuteronomy 12:29 through 32 reads, Yah, your God, will cut off before you the nations you are about to invade and dispossess. But when you have driven them out and settled in their land, and after they have been destroyed before you, be careful not to ensnare yourself by inquiring about their gods, saying, How did these nations serve their gods? We will do the same. You must not worship Yah, your God, in their way, because in worshiping their gods, they do all kinds of detestable things that Yah hates. They even burn their sons and daughters in the fire as sacrifices to their gods. See that you do all I command you. Do not add to it, nor take away from it. So here we have a picture of one of the doors to be opened. The Holy Door, Porta Santa of the Papal Basilica of St. John Lateran. You see Mary holding the baby, as well as her throwing up Satan's favorite gang sign. This is the same hand sign you see on all the pictures of statues of Baphomet, as well as a great deal of the paintings of the Messiah that was done for the Catholic Church. As I looked further into old images of Baphomet or Satan, I couldn't find much earlier than the 800 AD. However, my interest was piqued at this hand gesture. So then I found this old image of Baal. This is known as Baal with the thunderbolt steel. It dates from the 15th to the 13th century BC. You notice how his right hand is up and his left hand is down, just like the pictures of Baphomet. Although he isn't performing the exact finger placement as the painting of Jesus and Baphomet, this may have evolved over time. The irony of his hand placement and the fact that the images of Baphomet show him as a man and a woman. Baphomet is always shown with the head of a goat, a body of a man, however with the breast of a woman. And if we look close at this image of Baal, his chest seems to be protruding far more than necessary. And if we look at the carvings from the same time period of men, we can see they are completely flat. And so one has to wonder why so many pictures that was commissioned of the Messiah by the Catholic Church have him having the same hand signals as Baphomet. And then why do they also like to mention Lucifer in reference to Yeshua? Now picture this. 1 billion Catholics worldwide unified in prayer and ritual. In both witchcraft and Wiccan practices, collective intent amplifies the power of a spell or incantation. Could the combined emotional focus of billions inadvertently empower forces that are contrary to Yah and His will? In Colossians 2:8, it says, See to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human tradition and the elements of spiritual forces of this world rather than on Christ. In several Catholic hymns, such as the East Virgil hymn, the Exult, the term Lucifer is used to describe Christ as the morning star. However, this phrasing creates ambiguity, such as this excerpt here. May this flame be found still burning by the morning star, the one morning star who never sets, Christ your Son. According to the Catholic Church, they use the Latin term Lucifer because Yeshua referred to himself as the bright morning star in Revelation 22:16, which states, I, Yeshua, have sent my angel to give you this testimony for the churches. I am the root and offspring of David and the bright morning star. Latin, as the linguistical language of the Church, is used in various hymns and prayers. The term Lucifer is Latin to translate to light bringer or morning star, and has been used historically to refer to celestial bodies like Venus and Satan. And so this begs a question. Why not just simply use Christ's name outright? Or use the term for what he did call himself, which was bright morning star, which translates in Latin to clara matutina. Could this have been intentional, just to potentially blur the lines between Yeshua and Lucifer? As believers, we are called to discern the fruits of every tradition. Yah commands clarity in his worship, as we just read in Deuteronomy 12:32, where he said, You shall not add to this word I command you, nor take from it. Yet ambiguity exists, whether accidental or deliberate, and it leads to spiritual confusion. Ephesians 5:11 states, Have no fellowship with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. The Catholic Church claims supreme spiritual authority over the earth. They justify this authority not through Yah's direct ordination, but by asserting control over sacred items, relics, and documents that were seized, stolen, or pillaged over centuries. Much of it originated from ancient Israel. This claim is not only unbiblical, but stands in stark contrast to Yah's explicit teachings. Nowhere in Scripture is authority justified by material possessions or conquests. Yeshua himself, the true intercessor for humanity, led with humility and service, not dominion. 2 Corinthians 8 verse 9 says, "For you know the grace of our Master Yeshua, that though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you, by his poverty, might become rich." Unlike the Messiah, who gave up wealth for the sake of humanity, the Catholic Church has amassed unimaginable riches. They are the largest non-governmental landowner in the world, holding 70 million hectares, nearly half the size of the entire United States. They own more than 5,000 investment properties and are deeply invested in some of the world's most powerful corporations, including multiple banks, multiple oil companies, and several tech giants. One thing the Pope and the Catholic Church will be doing at this ritual event is something they always do, and it's pray for world peace and the end of world hunger. But what actions have they actually taken? The United Nations World Food Program estimates that it would take $40 billion annually for 9 years to end world hunger completely. The Catholic Church could meet this need using only a fraction of its wealth or annual donations. According to a research done by Mary Gautier, Senior Research Associate at Georgetown University Center for Applied Research in the Apostolate, in the United States, Catholics donate an average of $10 a week. And with 52 million Catholic adults in America, that's $520 million in weekly donations, which will bring a total of $27 billion annually. And that's just from America. Europe is home to 286 million Catholics, which likely contributes double given the euro's value. However, if they literally gave $1 each a week, that would bring the total to nearly $42 billion a year combined. The church makes well over the $40 billion required to eliminate hunger forever just from annual donations. And lest we forget that America and Europe only make up a small fraction of the total amount of Catholics. In 2022, the estimate was 1.4 billion Catholics worldwide, which means there would still be over 1 billion Catholics out there to keep shelling out funds to the church.
Tell them to bring me my money.
Yet, instead of taking any meaningful action towards the goal, they simply pray. As long as the Pope prays for it and the people pray for it, or they pay for the Pope's success in prayer, that should be enough to satisfy the bellies of the hungry, right? You compare this to Yeshua, who not only taught about helping the needy, but actively lived it. Yeshua warned us about the dangers of wealth in Matthew 6:24, where he says, "No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both Yah and Mammon." But the church holds on tightly to Mammon, material wealth, influence, and power, all while claiming to be the supreme intercessor to the Messiah. This contradiction is glaring, especially when contrasted with Yah's explicit commands to care for the poor, heal the sick, and to seek justice. Matthew 8 verse 20 reads, "And Yeshua said to him, Foxes have holes, and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." By ignoring their immense potential to address world hunger and alleviate suffering of humanity, the church not only fails in its moral responsibility, but also undermines its credibility as a spiritual leader. Their actions, or lack thereof, stand in opposition of the Messiah's teachings. James 2, verse 17 states, "In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead." Yet the Catholic Church's actions seem centered on accumulating wealth rather than embodying the sacrificial love Yeshua demonstrated. The church often cites 1 Timothy 2:1-2, which encourages prayers for all who are in authority. But their authority is not from Yah, nor is it from the Messiah. It was forged through warlike practices, seizing, pillaging, and dominating. This authority, built on human conquest rather than divine appointment, is an antithesis for Yeshua's mission. And how can the Pope claim to intercede on behalf of humanity when his actions reflect the very systems of greed and oppression Yeshua condemned? This discrepancy should prompt every believer to ask, what spirit truly drives these rituals and claims of authority? As we uncover the layers of the Catholic Church's claims, wealth, and inaction, it becomes clear. These practices align more with the systems of the world rather than the teachings of Yah. They serve as a stark reminder of the importance of discernment in worship. Romans 12, verse 2 reads, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what Yah's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." In the end, Yah calls us to seek him, not through traditions or institutions that may blur his word, but through the clear commandments he's given and the example of his Son. As believers, it is our responsibility to question what we follow, to seek Yah's truth, and to stand firm in worship that aligns with his will. For the path to light begins not at the doors of a cathedral, but at the opening of a heart committed to his word.